Do you want to publish your book successfully on the world's largest online bookstore, Amazon? Stay tuned. Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott Patton, your host. This is a free-ebooks free show for you. We're streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Hopefully soon we're going to be on Roku, Amazon, and Apple TV. We're really, really excited. I have an amazing guest, but before I do, I just want to let you know about what we do. Our site, free-ebooks.net, has been around for a long, long time, and our purpose is to support authors. It's very difficult for authors to grow communities, to get published. Amazon is certainly making that easier, and we want to as well. So if you've got a book and you want to put it in front of one of our 5 million members, all you do is head over to free-ebooks.net, click on the publish button. I'm not logged in, so I hope it takes me to the right page. There we go. And you're going to be able to just follow the instructions and put your book on our site. Yeah, you have to sign in to see the whole thing. We've got a good video there that takes you through every step of the way. And if you happen to be just an avid reader, we have tens of thousands of books for you to read. We've got our featured ebooks that are our editor's pick. We've got all these categories for you. Going down, we've got our best books overall. We've got, well, it's Valentine's Day coming up this weekend, so we've got Cupid's reading list. You don't want to miss that. All right, so free-ebooks.net. We have a lot of fun. We really enjoy helping authors grow their audiences, and we really love it when our readers give us feedback and tell us how much they enjoy all the books. So with that, I've got a very, very special guest for you today. She's a 3-time #1 best-selling author, and she's the founder of Publishing Made Simple. She helps successful entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, and visionaries expand their reach by writing and publishing their books on the world's largest online book retailer. And guess who that happens to be? Yes, Amazon, big surprise. So self-publishing on Amazon is an amazing way to build your brand and attract clients. Oftentimes, books are great, an amazing way for you to get your message out into the community. And if you want to coach people, or you've got a service or a product that you want them to have, once they've read your book, they're going to want more. She's Self-Publishing Made Simple helps aspiring authors to write and self-publish their books on Amazon in 90 days or less. So with that, I want you all to give a big, warm, free-ebooks welcome to Emee Estacio. Hey, Emee,
Hi.
how are you doing today?
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So let's just start with, how can we make publishing simple?
All right. Here's the thing with self-publishing. Some authors actually try to complicate it. They will look for different ways to self-publish, and they are like several steps ahead of themselves. To make it simple, what we have to do is to take it a step at a time. And what I remind my students to do first and foremost is, even before you get ahead of yourself thinking about your cover, marketing, and all that, the first thing really is to finish writing your book. So for me, as far as self-publishing made simple is concerned, and my students can testify to this, I'm actually quite strict in terms of taking it one step at a time, focusing on one task at a time, ticking those boxes, and then you move on to the next task. It's almost like building those blocks. That's how you simplify it. Because when you self-publish, I understand there's a lot to do, there's a lot to learn, and there's a possibility that if you are going to just take it as one big lump of a project, you might feel overwhelmed. So to make it simple, you lay out the steps and take it a step at a time, focus on a task at a time, and the next thing you know, you're a number one best-selling author on Amazon.
Perfect. So one of the things that I've noticed over the years with me is if I have to do something by myself, it doesn't get done. So for example, today, it's kind of white because of the exposure, but it's a beautiful, sunny, it's cold in Canada here where I am, but it's a beautiful sunny day. So if we weren't meeting right now and I have 10 things on my to-do list that I have to do for work, and as I said, we weren't meeting, I would probably be out walking in the forest right now because it's like, oh, it's a beautiful day. I should do that because it's going to snow. And I have all these reasons in my head. So is it really important that, is there a more lonely profession than writing? We're writing and we're all by ourselves and everything else. And I just think that it is so hard when we try to do it all by ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see new authors make is that they try to figure everything out on their own and they isolate themselves. While it is good to have that bit of isolation to calm your mind, to quiet your mind, and to find actually what you want to write, sometimes it does help to connect with other people, to be in a community. And actually, we know from psychology, my background is, I'm a chartered psychologist. Actually, one of the things that we know works is to have a bit of accountability. Because sometimes, even we have the best intention, let's say you've made an intention to write 1,000 words today, and you're just telling it to yourself, sometimes it's quite easy to make excuses and end up not doing it, especially if you don't have that discipline yet. It's quite easy to do that because no one is watching. So when you are part of a community or when you have someone who will keep you accountable, whether it's a coach or whether it is you're part of a mastermind or a community where you go through the process together, you can actually hold yourself accountable to the goals that you've set, and you don't really have to be in isolation. One of the things that I've noticed with my students, because I actually do run the Get It Done Challenge, which is a 12-week program that we go through the process together of writing, self-publishing, and launching their books. We meet every week, and what I find is that authors actually experience very similar challenges, very similar blocks. Sometimes they would experience imposter syndrome, sometimes they would experience overwhelm, or sometimes they will just feel the fear of writing something and being judged by other people. So when we have our group coaching calls every Friday, I see that my students experience these challenges, and sometimes they might fall into the trap of wanting to procrastinate. And by being part of the group, by setting keeping yourself accountable and having that group of people supporting you and going with you through the process, it becomes less isolating. Plus, you hold yourself accountable and you keep moving forward. You keep yourself motivated, and the next thing you know, you get the job done. So, really important to have a group of people around you to support you. Writing can be isolating if you choose to be isolated, but it doesn't really have to be that way.
Perfect. So I happen to have your URL in the comments for the Facebook group. So please, if you're an author, don't be alone, be part of a community. It's really important to be a part of a community because really as an author, you're a leader of your own community as well. And so join the group. And I actually happen to have the page right here. I didn't know I would have joined before and we could see a little bit more, but here it is. Just join. In fact, I'm going to click join. There we go. And now I got to answer some questions.
I will just accept it. I'll approve it. Don't worry. You're in.
I always like to answer the questions because when I have my groups, I ask questions, and if they don't answer them, it's very hard to get into my groups because I find that, anyway, it doesn't
Yeah, you're
Doesn't
in
matter.
now. You're in,
Tell us
Scott.
a little about
So
your.
yeah,
All
we
right.
actually do
Hey.
have we have accountability there. We set our intentions every Monday. We check on Friday how you progressed. But I think the highlight of the week in the group is we actually have our Ask Me Anything Tuesdays. So I go in there live every Tuesday and they can literally ask me anything about writing and self publishing on Amazon. And I have to say, one of the common questions that I get inside the community is how to launch your book on Amazon, or what do I do to successfully launch my book on Amazon? So, what I usually talk about in that community is preparation is really important. Before you start writing your book, make sure that your mindset is ready, that your calendar is ready, that your environment is ready, so that when you start writing, you can just keep going. But at the same time, when you finish writing your book, I also always tell my community to make sure that when you publish your book, you don't just hit the publish button, cross your fingers, and hope for the best. Because there are millions of books on Amazon, and the last thing that you'd want to happen is for your book to just drown in the ocean of books on Amazon. You're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of energy. You're pouring your heart and soul into completing your book, and if you don't prepare properly, yeah, your book might just disappear there. So what I tell my community, what I tell my students is that when you finish writing your book, make sure that you adequately prepare. You need to have a launch strategy in place to launch your books. And I talk a lot about that inside the Self-Publishing Made Simple community. We talk about the importance of keyword research. We talk about category research, being able to trigger the Amazon algorithm, building your launch team, and all that good stuff. Because one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen new authors make is that, yeah, they go ahead, they write their book, they put it on Amazon, hit the publish button, and then they cross their fingers hoping that people will find it. But if they are not prepared, and they are competing against authors like us who are prepared, you really don't stand a chance at competing there, especially if you have zero followers, if you don't have an existing audience yet. So, yeah, if you join the Self Publishing Made Simple community on Facebook, you will see that that's probably one of the most common questions I get asked every Tuesday. But if you have any other questions about writing and self publishing, some of my community members ask me about ISBNs, or they ask me about where to get their cover designer, or sometimes they even ask about psychology, because psychology is my background. Like, how do you get past imposter syndrome, or how do you overcome procrastination or get over the fear of being judged when you publish your book? So we do cover a lot of things in the community, and please feel free to join us if you're interested in joining our Self-Publishing Made Simple community on Facebook.
Awesome. And again, in the comments, wherever the comments are, I put the link so you'll be able to get there easily. And you talked about one of your books, and I think this is a great time, Emee, to bring on some of your books and just show people what you've done a little. And it's so funny that you talk about the imposter syndrome, and here's the book right here, because I was in a conversation, well, I was in another group, and someone was talking about imposter syndrome and how you deal with it. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. First time in like 2 years, the term has come up, and it's come up twice in like 3 days. So you have a Kindle edition, and one of the things that I wanted to ask is, so you can have a hardcover, like a real, I have to have one
Paperback
right here.
version.
A real
Yes.
paperback book, right? Oh, there, my
It's
buddy
upside
Rob
down.
is upside down. He's not going to freak. I keep putting his book on my show and then mentioning that his book is on my show, and then he has to go watch my show to find out where I tell people about his book. But Rob and the Scammers is an awesome book to give your parents, your grandparents, depending on how old you are, elderly people, because it's all the ways that they get scammed. And young people too, like us, get scammed too. But really, when I was reading it, I thought, when I see my mom, I'm giving her this book, because she needs to, she'll have a fun read. She likes reading. And then she'll know when she gets these phone calls, because she does get them, that, oh no, this is a scammer that's trying to get
You
my
need to
money.
spot them. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little, so first of all, which book was your first book? This imposter
Oh, I
syndrome?
have to say, my first book is actually, I'm also a traditionally published author. You can see that the health psychology textbooks are there. So that's actually me wearing my academic hat. As a psychologist, I've written textbooks at university level. But for my self-published books, the first one that I wrote was Change Your Life for Good, which was actually, I have to say, I started with 0 followers on social media. The only reason why I joined Facebook is because I was writing a book and I needed people to see me launch a book. But when I started with my first book, I launched it and I actually outranked Tim Ferriss when I launched that New Year's Day. So absolutely
Good for
enjoyed.
you.
Yeah. I absolutely enjoyed writing the book, having the buzz, and getting feedback from my readers that it did change their lives. So I moved on to the next one, which is Imposter Syndrome Remedy. And this is all about embracing your true worth, because there are so many experts out there. And I have to say, I'm also someone who experienced imposter syndrome, and I still do experience it from time to time. And I call it imposter syndrome remedy and not imposter syndrome cure, is because we will experience self-doubt from time to time, no matter how amazing you are. That's part of being human. But the thing is, when you do experience imposter syndrome, you need to know how to remedy it. Like when you catch a cold, what do you do with it? And it's all about recognizing your self-worth. And in that book, I do teach about strategies from psychology on how you could explore the inner critic messages that fuel imposter syndrome. So one of
Mm.
the strategies that I teach is called the TLC questioning sequence, which encourages you to actually recognize that your inner critic messages exist. For example, it's telling you that you're a fraud, or you're not good enough, you're not qualified enough to do this. And with the TLC questioning sequence, you encourage yourself to explore these limiting beliefs, this inner critic messages, and ask 3 questions. Is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? So if the messages that you're telling
Mm.
yourself are lies, so for example, if you're saying, I'm not qualified to do this, then you have to ask, is it true? You'll have to look for the evidence. Don't you have the experience? Don't you have the training? Don't you have the track record? And it's more likely that you will actually find evidence that would say, actually, you've done this before, or you actually do have the knowledge and the expertise to get this done. So ask, is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? Explore your inner critic messages, and then explore what is the course of action you need to take so you can overcome these feelings of, this persistent feeling of self-doubt, incompetence, and inadequacy, despite evidence that shows otherwise. So yeah, imposter syndrome remedy, it's very common. 70% of us will experience this at some point in our lives. And for authors,
Wow.
I see this all the time with my students. Even if they are the best, the experts in their field, they still feel as if they're just fooling everyone into believing that they know what they're talking about, even when they actually do know what they're talking about. So if you feel this way, yeah, this book will show you some strategies on how to manage that.
And I have a definition of expert that I really like, and that is, an expert is somebody who knows that they don't know everything about their topic, right?
Yeah.
We know, and I think that's part of the problem, right? It's like we know so much about it, but we know there's so much more to know about it. So how can I be like the expert or the authority when I still have so much more to learn about my topic, even if you know more than 99.9% of the rest of the population?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I was going to ask you for a tip, and you went and, oh, I don't know where I went. You went and gave us way more than that, a tip on that one. So thank you. And then was your latest one fear?
Fear is not my
Fear.
enemy, which is actually, I published it just before COVID. And
Oh,
when COVID
wow.
happened, fear was actually taking over so many people's you know experiences, understandably, because there's a lot of
Sure.
uncertainty. People aren't sure how it's going to be. And the fears being triggered by risks, which are potentially there. So again, with fear is not my enemy. I actually did write this before COVID, but my intention with this one is, fear is an unpleasant emotion, but it is something that is necessary to our survival.
Hmm.
Fear is a trigger that tells us that there is a potential risk, and it encourages us to examine the risks before you take action. The trouble is, there are some people who experience fear, and yes, it stops them and it paralyzes them, that they get so sucked into the fear that it stops them from doing what they need to do. So with fear is not my enemy, I again, I teach some strategies from psychology, and actually talks about the mechanisms, the psychophysiological mechanisms of fear, why we respond to fear in a certain way, and how you can actually feel the fear and cope with the fear so you can still get on with what you need to do. Essentially, fear is there, and I say fear is not my enemy because it's letting you know that there is a potential risk, and what you need to do is to examine the risk, examine your ability to handle the risk, and examine the consequences of action and inaction, or inaction, if you decide not to do anything, so you can actually take a more informed decision on how you're going to manage the risk. That's all there is to it, really.
Perfect. And I don't know if you know, but Gloriana just told us that today is International Women in Science Day. So
Oh,
you are the
cool.
perfect guest for me to have today. Thank you, Emmy, for being on. Congratulations to all the amazing ladies, mothers, sisters, friends, and of course, all the female authors out there who make the world a better place with their contributions. Beautiful.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
both.
wonderful. And I have to say, so many of my students, for some reason, I'm attracting so many women. Like in the self-publishing Made Simple community, I think I have about 85% women. And in my online courses, it's probably around 95% women. So I'm attracting a lot of women, and they all write about empowerment, and they write about all these heart-centered, purpose-driven books, that they want to share something valuable and meaningful with the world. And I'm so deeply proud, when my students actually publish their books and get their books to number one bestseller, because it's not just about writing the book, it's also about sharing the message and impacting the lives of their readers, because their messages, they are so powerful that they can have that lasting legacy that they can give to the world. So it's an
Wow.
absolute honor for me to help those women, particularly those heart-centered, purpose-driven entrepreneurs and coaches who have a message that they want to share. And it's an absolute honor for them to help them to get their message out and leave that impact in the world.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Emmy. We're getting close to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you, what are the three biggest mistakes that new authors make, and how can they
Oh,
avoid
right.
them?
Yes. I think I touched upon this very briefly earlier, but the first mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that I see new authors make is that when they have an idea to write a book, they just jump and write the book immediately. And I say that that is okay, to begin with. It's like, if you are inspired, yeah, go ahead and write. But what I notice is that sometimes the fire fizzles away. And if you don't set the right foundation, you might end up starting something, you might end up going halfway through the book and not finish it. So to remedy that problem, one of the biggest mistakes that I see new authors make is, you need to set the foundations right before you start writing your book. Make sure that you are in the right mindset, understand your purpose, understand your reason why you're writing your book, block specific times, protected times in your calendar to write your book. If you want to finish it in 90 days or less, have accountability, set your environment right, so you are in the right mindset and in the right environment to get started with your book and finish it. So avoid that first mistake, just jumping and not laying the right foundations. The second biggest mistake I've seen new authors make is that they only write about what they find interesting. Okay, I have to say there's nothing wrong in writing about what you know and your expertise and what your passion is, but I would say that it is a mistake to just be so self-centered and self-absorbed with what you're interested in. Essentially, when you write a book, you're having a dialogue with your reader. So to remedy that problem, you really need to understand that when you write a book, there's another person, digesting your words. And you really need to do your market research, your keyword research, and take into consideration what your readers need and what your readers are looking for right now before you start writing your book. Because that way you would be able to write a book that will serve your audience well. And it's not just writing a book for the sake of writing a book and fulfilling your inner desire to write one. Remember, there is a reader on the other side of the book, and you have to take that into consideration when you are writing. So that's the second mistake. Second mistake is just only thinking about yourself and writing the book just because you want to write a book. Remember, there's a reader. You have to consider the reader. Do your keyword research and market research. That way you will be able to write a book that will serve them well. And the third biggest mistake that I've seen new authors make, and I've touched upon this earlier, is that they publish a book, launch their book, cross their fingers, and hope for the best. They publish without a plan. They publish with no strategy whatsoever, and they are surprised that it's not selling well. So the way to remedy this is, if you're going to publish a book and if you want it to be successful on Amazon, you need to launch with a plan. You need to have a strategy. You need to know how Amazon works so that when you launch your book, you can strategically position your book to compete on Amazon, do your market research, do your keyword research, build your launch team weeks before you publish your book. So by the time you launch your book, you are ready and it will be easier. It will be more enjoyable. And yeah, the next thing you know, you'll be number one on Amazon as well. Sorry, Scott,
I
you're
know
on.
I muted myself so I didn't make any noise while you were talking, which brings me to my final question. And I can assume an answer to this is positive, but based on everything that you said, I mean, Amazon is huge. There are thousands of books being published, I don't know, daily, weekly, whatever it happens to be. And so is Amazon saturated? Like, are the bookshelves full? There's no room for any more books.
Well, this is something that we actually had this discussion in one of my group coaching calls a few weeks ago with my students. They're asking, "Oh no, are we putting in another book on this topic? Like everyone's writing about life's purpose, or everyone's writing about the law of attraction, or whatever it may be." No, it is not saturated in such a way that of course you can write a book on topics that already exist, but when you write a book, you're actually making a contribution and sharing your perspective and your voice on a particular topic. There may be other books that are, classics or people will already read about, but your voice is not there yet. So when you write your book, you're contributing your voice, you're contributing your perspective, and ultimately, if your book can actually serve one person and that person actually resonates with you and improves their life or their well-being, and for me, actually, the feedback that I get from some of my readers is that they would say, you help me to change my habits, and now I live a healthier life. I've lost so much weight, and so on and so forth. With that, my heart glows. I know that there are a lot of other books that talk about imposter syndrome or that talk about psychology. But when I write my book, and I may have a lot of competition on Amazon, I am giving my perspective on that particular topic. So if you're an author and you're thinking, oh, there's so many books on Amazon already, why should I add another book on this topic? Remember, you are making a contribution. You're making your voice and your perspective heard about this particular topic. And that's absolutely beautiful to be able to share that in that way. And I have to say, if you want to compete, if you want to be visible on Amazon, you need to educate yourself. That's why I joined my group, because we talk a lot about that on, there are millions of books on Amazon. How are you going to elevate your brand, and how are you going to be visible? When you educate yourself, when you know how Amazon works, how to trigger the Amazon algorithm, you'll be in a better position to compete and make your book visible there.
A beautiful answer, Emee. Thank you. And I totally agree. It's a bottomless pit of hungry readers that are just waiting for your book. And when you connect with them, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you again. We've come to the end of our time together. I want to bring up the group again. Here it is. It's in the comments, facebook.com/groups/self-pub made simple. Go there, join it. Tell Emee that you saw her on the free ebooks show and get started making your books. And that's what we're all about, Emee, is we're sort of in lockstep. Our mission at Free eBooks is to help authors get in front of an audience, to create that community. And of course, we do it by giving out free books, right? But if you write a book and you give it out free, then what the people are going to want is they're going to want more. This is why I think, like in the movies, it's overdone, but every movie has a sequel, right? So that's because people want more and more and more. And it's really important. So,
and I have to say, Scott, with what you do, the power of free, it is it's putting your brand out there, and then when people actually read your book, they hear your message, they resonate with you, they can connect with you, and you build a fan base as a result of that. So I have to say, I'll check out freeebooks.net. I think it's a fantastic way to get your stuff out there and reach your audience.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate you. Head over to free-ebooks.net. It's free. You can get 5 free books every month and read to your heart's content, and then get another 5 next month. And we really encourage you to do that. We've got some amazing authors, fiction and nonfiction. And actually, Emee, we do have textbooks as well. So there's lots for everybody, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.